So I finally managed to drag myself out of the house and go see Wonder Woman. Yeah, I know this is a review site for PS4 games. So what? Okay, so just in case any of you don't know the basic storyline from, all the trailers and promotional material, the film opens on the island of Themyscira, which is where the Amazons live, and it follows the path of Diana, the princess there, as she starts off as a young girl and works her way up into young adulthood, training to be a warrior on the island. We get to see the island's Amazons, we get to see their artwork, their architecture. Shortly after this, Steve Trevor's, played by Chris Pine, crash lands his plane on the island, well, not on the island, in the water. Again, you've seen it in the trailers. He gets rescued by Diana, pulled up on the beach, they interrogate him and try to figure out what he's doing there. He does manage to bring half the German army with him though. In all fairness, the island is hidden from outsiders, so not really his fault. After hearing all about the war from Steve, Diana decides to leave with him and go to the mainland and try to put a stop to it. She is convinced through most of this film that Ares, the god of war, is responsible for the war and that killing him will bring the war to an end. So this film takes a while to get going, and it takes a while to get to the first proper action scene outside of the training montage early on. And that's not a bad thing. It doesn't feel like it's taking it, well, it is taking its time, but it doesn't feel slow. And that's because the film takes its time to build not only character development for both Steve Trevor's and Diana, but it also takes the trouble to set up that human connection. That it's constantly referring to the war in terms of the toll it's taking on the people who are having to flee the battlegrounds, flee the shelling, the soldiers that are coming back wounded. It takes its time to set all that up. So by the time you get to the first action scene, you feel properly invested in all that stuff and you know what's going on. By far and away the best scene in the film, you've seen bits of it in the trailers, I'm sure. It's the bit where for the first time Diana goes up over, out of the trench, up the ladder, up into no man's land, is bouncing bullets away with her shield, is flinging, bouncing that mortar away from her, deflecting all the gunfire. This is like 5 minutes after she shows up in the trench. She shows up 5 minutes later, she's pressing across no man's land, the Allies are advancing behind her. They've been stuck there for a year, and within 5 minutes, they're straight across. This action scene actually goes on for quite a while. It's sort of an extended scene. It starts when she goes up the ladder and out into no man's land, and it finishes at the church tower. Spoilers, but it goes on for that long. But what makes it particularly good is the bit just before and just after. Because before the trench scene, and before the whole thing, we see Diana and Steve coming up to the trenches, and they have to go past all these people. They have to go past the civilians who are fleeing. They're going past all the soldiers who are talking there. They've been there for a year. And they are demoralised, and the place is muddy, and all that World War I stuff. And all of that point up until this film again has built that human element up. So by the time she goes up into no man's land, you've already established that connection with everybody who's suffering, and so it makes it that much more awesome when she goes up and over and starts doing her thing. Then there's the bit afterwards. They're in a village, and as part of that sequence they liberate a village. And again, it's all the celebrations afterwards. You see the people suffering and really struggling just to get the hell out of there beforehand, and then she goes through the awesome action scene, and then you have all the people clustered around at the end saying, oh, thank you very much, and just grateful that someone's come in and finally put a stop to all this. It's all incredibly well written from start to finish. It's a good action scene, it's an excellent action scene, but it's got those two extra bits there which help sell it more, which bookend it at both ends. It's perfect. People were speculating after having seen the trailers that that German commander guy, you've seen him in the trailers, that that guy was Ares, the god of war in disguise, and everyone was saying it. I'm not going to confirm or deny that because spoilers, but just know one of my concerns was that will this film have a villain that can match up to Wonder Woman's power level, or are they just going to depower her? Know that there is a superpowered bad guy in this film. So my fears were unjustified in that sense. Another one of my worries actually was also Chris Pine. And the first headline that I saw that confirmed that he was going to be in this film, Chris Pine to star as male lead in Wonder Woman solo film. And I remember the exact wording of that headline because I read it about 3 dozen times, and the more I read it, the more annoyed I got. Because I just kept on thinking to myself, 2 things. First of all, you finally got a female-led superhero film and you still feel the need to put a bloke next to her. The second thing was, how many Amazons are there on Themyscira again? You seriously couldn't find another woman to act as the second. I was worried that by putting a regular old human, Steve Trevors, next to Diana, that it would do one of 2 things. It would either require him somehow to keep up with her, in which case they'd have to depower her, or he would constantly be an anvil, an anchor, a weight slowing her down all the time, and that she would have to constantly stop to let him catch up. I was worried about that, so it was a whole thing. They did it very well. It is incredibly well done. Because as it turns out, whenever she goes off and does a thing, because she's from a warrior people and they're very headstrong, leadership, honour, all that kind of stuff. Because of that, when she decides to go off and do something, she's just gone. She just leaves everybody else behind. Steve couldn't keep up with her even if he tried, and he doesn't try. Even the romance, I was pleasantly surprised with how downplayed it was most of the time. There are romantic elements there. Diana is very focused for most of this film. And so is Steve Trevors, to be honest. They're both very much focused on trying to stop the war, or to try to at least stop this little part of it. They have time for a bit of romance, but it's not overplayed. It's very downplayed. And it is way better than I was expecting it to. It's not very cliche, it feels very genuine. So, the side characters. Well, there was a Scottish guy who sang, who was a sniper, who never sniped anybody. At least I don't think he did. Then there was the Indian-French guy. And then there was the Native American guy. And the only reason I can remember his nickname is because his nickname was Chief. And those were the 3 members of the squad. And that's all I know about them. It's not that they were bad characters, it's just that the film didn't bother to flesh them out any more than that. It just didn't bother. The focus was not on them. They were merely supporting roles in this whole thing, even though they were sort of part of the team. I have no idea what her name was, the character name, the actress name, but it's Steve Trevors' secretary, that short woman that you've seen in the trailers. 85–90% of her presence in this film is in the trailers. Seriously, most of her stuff is in the trailers. It's not bad. She's not a bad character. She's good. I was just surprised at how little there was of her. You could probably have cut her character out of the film and it would literally have made no difference whatsoever. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman is awesome in this role. I didn't really have any strong opinion on her beforehand. I know a lot of people did. Totally unfounded in my opinion. I mean, I'm tone deaf, so I'm not right good with accents at the best of times, but I thought she knocked this out of the park. She was awesome. Chris Pine as Steve Trevors, again, brilliant. Obviously not as awesome as her, but, you know, Wonder Woman. But he does what he needs to do. He is acting his backside off in this film, doing everything he needs to. He's great as well. You know that thing where in previous well, not just DC films, but in quite a few Marvel films as well. Both DC and Marvel suddenly thought, oh God, we've been killing people left, right and centre and we haven't even addressed it yet. Yeah. They suddenly had a realisation, because suddenly Marvel was doing Civil War, where they got all concerned that they were blowing lots of things up. And then obviously DC tried to address the Man of Steel controversy, you know, killing lots of people. In Dawn of Justice, sort of. In my opinion, both of those films kind of skipped out on that bit. Wonder Woman, right from the start, Wonder Woman squarely places your sympathies with the people on the ground, with the people, with the citizens who are running for their lives, and with the soldiers. And you see the wounded soldiers coming back, and it's like Diana's going, we need to help these people, and we need to help this one, and we need to and the others are like, no, come on, we can't do anything to help. And, you know, because Diana wants to help. That's her character, and she sees all these people suffering, and she wants to get involved, and the others are trying to say, no, come on, big picture, big picture. The film never lets up in that regard. Well, maybe it lets up a bit towards the end, but in that sense. But it firmly places that ground right down at the beginning. It firmly plants that as the basis for everything that's happening. You know, that connection with the people and the soldiers on the ground, that empathy that the film creates. There's an old Doctor Who episode with Patrick Troughton called The War Games. The tone of, for most of this film, around the war and the people being displaced, the suffering, the mud, the rain, the everything, it was somewhat reminiscent of that. It did remind me a little bit of that, where your sympathies are placed firmly with the people, and that was essential. It's part of it. Not only helps to set the scene properly, but it also helps build Diana's character and sets her up as this person who is going to put all of this right. One of the very few minus points I'll put against this film is that when this film goes heavy with the CGI, you can tell. Some of the CGI is okay. There's some explosions that are CGI driven. It's like there's one in the trailer which is like a blue blast of energy. CG, obviously, so that's not too bad, but sometimes when Wonder Woman is flipping through the air and, you know, doing her thing, I'm not very agile at the best of times and I'm sat down, but when sometimes when she's doing her thing, you can tell it's CGI. It does take you a little bit out of the film, to be honest. It's not distracting to the point where the film breaks, but you do kind of think to yourself, okay, we just went into CGI land. From the beginning of the film to the beginning of the end credits, the film is about 2¼ hours long. Not once did I feel bored, not once did I feel, God, this is taking forever. Not once was there a dull moment. Even when all the character stuff, all the empathy with the people and the soldiers, none of it feels like filler. There is no filler here. The only bit that I thought started to wane a little bit, it's still good, but the end sequence, because as I've said, there is a supervillain in this film for Wonder Woman to go up against. It's like, up until that point, the film had been excellent. It sort of dropped slightly to good. It's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's just that final bit, bit of a drop-off in quality, maybe. I thought that Man of Steel was a good film. I know that's a divisive topic, but I thought it was good. Then there was Dawn of Justice, which was something. The action set pieces were good, but the characters were a bit odd, and the less said about the story, the better. Suicide Squad, good popcorn film, but you need to ignore the fact that, what's her name, Amanda Waller sets up both the anti-heroes and the villain. So, you know, if you hadn't assembled Task Force X, the world wouldn't be in peril, you know what I mean? Anyway, Wonder Woman gets an 8 out of 10. This is a great film. I'm very glad that finally Warner Brothers and DC have managed to shake off that that feeling that they're not really trying that hard. That they're just sort of As I say, you know, Man of Steel, Suicide Squad I quite like, Dawn of Justice, I like bits of it. This is the first film where I can honestly say I loved the whole thing. You know, from start to finish, never a dull moment. Brilliant characters, brilliant story, brilliant setting. Some of the colour palettes are a bit washed out in places. Themyscira looks gorgeous in the beginning. The colour palettes of London look a bit subdued, but it's obvious that that's deliberate. Again, the colour palettes on the front lines in the trenches, they're very subdued. But there is colour. There are gold scenes and blue and a lot of blue and grey scenes, let's be honest. But this is a very nice looking film overall. The action does not disappoint. The characters are very extremely well rounded. The side characters are also good but forgettable, and I'm really glad I went and saw this when I did. By the way, if you don't know this, there's a Wonder Woman film from 2009. It's an animated film, and if you like this kind of thing, definitely go check that one out as well. So that's Wonder Woman, 8 out of 10, great film, glad I saw it. I'm still working on Shadow Warrior 2, and I will get that out whenever it happens. Don't go thinking that this film review is going to be a regular thing. I just happen to want to go see this film. If I go out and see another film, then fair enough, but don't get used to this.